Hi there. I'm having fun. How about you? Okay, this journal is from 8/24, the first one of that day, and the Mayan day was 2 Crocodile. So this one is toward the very beginning of the Tracina, and so you won't see things coming together until toward the end. Let's see what we notice here. It's a strange time to be alive. There are more crazy assumptions underlying what we think we know that are helping us to make things really strange. It all seems so normal on the surface that it lulls us into thinking we know what's what and what's going on. Anything but. As a for instance, did you know that we can't yet define temperature? Sure, we know how to measure it and how it behaves under certain circumstances, but we still don't know what it is. We don't actually know what we're measuring. And the same goes for gravity. We neither know what it is nor what causes it. We just know that it is, and not much more. Let's add to that mix, let's add light to that mix as something else we can work with and measure and take apart into its constituent frequencies. Make the type a little bigger. That doesn't mean we can define light. An excellent video by the physicist Peter Russell postulates that light itself isn't even here in 3D with us. He suggests that it's in another dimension, and what we see is perhaps the shadow or the bleeding through of that. Truly interesting, but clearly highlighting that we can't define light yet. Science is full of these things. Items we work with all the time include in our great experiments items for which we have no accepted definition. Only assumptions piled on top of more assumptions. Science doesn't like to look at this or talk about it. Even many scientists' thinking is riddled with unproved assumptions, such as belief in Darwin's evolutionary theory, which is in no way proved. Even Darwin, in his old age, stepped back from it. So, where is truth to be found in the midst of this situation? One thing I see as necessary is that we withdraw trust from everything out there in the world and vest it only in self and in source, nowhere else. We have to go by our own internal resonance on things and keep the BS meter polished and in good working order. It's pretty stinky out there. Let's not get used to that fragrance. That's what has happened to the scientists. They got used to relying on and believing in certain theories. It made their other calculations come out so neatly. They chose to believe them, perhaps because those theories form the basis of some of their own theories. So they have something invested in those questionable theories being right. If not, then their own theories may come tumbling down, and they can't have that. Science itself has become rather a racket. Not all of it, but a good chunk. True scientific experiments are seriously costly a lot of times. We do ourselves a favor by requiring all funding for experiments to be transparently listed ahead of the outcomes of those experiments when they're published. If we lose sight of who is funding something, we set ourselves up to be duped. And through the government, we're the ones funding many of those experiments. So we have both the right and the need to know these things. We're footing the bill. To uncover most of what is wrong with society today, just follow the money. Simple logic tells us that the big, expensive experiments must be funded by some very deep pockets. We've got to get better at questioning that, at demanding to know the funding. Just the fact that it usually lies hidden should tell us that maybe they're not so proud of where the funding originates, not proud of the agenda, the required agenda that comes along with it. If it proves out the wrong way, the funding will be pulled. So, why do we trust so easily, my friends? Why are we so easily misled? Perhaps it's because too many of us haven't awakened from the sheeple or sleeple state yet. But we're getting around to it. It's steadily happening. Though it may not yet look that way on the surface, this mess is already in the midst of changing. So things are both worse and better than many of us think they are. With a good dose of detachment, one can more easily look into things like funding and scientific experiments based on unproved theories instead of established facts. Yet, with the whole scientific community so ready to base their thinking and their work on these theories, it's hard to figure out where to tackle or tickle this beast to get it to wake up. As usual, the best conclusion or solution is to go to work on the self first. Whatever is bothering us out there in the world needs to be cleaned up within us. It wouldn't bother us if we didn't have elements of the problem within. We'd be at peace with it if it was totally resolved inside. So let us take our discomfort with whatever it is out there as indication that we have some of that very thing going on inside. How are you doing with this kind of thing? With seeing the outer world as just a reflection of what's inside? Are you open to it, or does it frighten you? Being frightened or bothered by something is also an indication we have some issues around it inside. When we quit running from what we fear, we'll be finding this out in short order. Things will become so much clearer. The fear is just a message that something needs tending, some energy that needs to be cleared. So fear in these cases is actually our ally. It has an important message for us. The more we ground ourselves in the reality that we are divine, the more strength and stamina we'll have to deal with our fears. When we come from a place of strength such as heart, we find that we just can't be harmed. Death is another one of those things that isn't yet successfully defined. So many of us fear it. Once we know we're divine, then we know we've got literally nothing to fear. All of this 3D stuff is just experience. We don't take the stuff over with us to the other side, but we do take the experience. So that makes it important. Living up to the highest that's in us won't lead us astray. We actually know what we're doing, just not at the conscious level. Far more of us is subconscious and unconscious than the part we call the self, the conscious mind part. Yet we rely pretty much exclusively on this small aspect of our being for everything. For many, if they're not conscious of it, if they don't have direct experience of it, then for them it just doesn't exist. This thinking is flawed. It totally invalidates the larger part of our consciousness, which lies hidden from the waking state view. Usually, as soon as someone points this out to us, we can see it immediately. It's that obvious. Yet, until we see it, it might as well not exist for us, since we don't allow that it could even be real. When we step back from this for a good look at it from a broader perspective, it looks so ridiculous that it can even seem funny. And it is, in a way. Of course, it's also kind of pathetic. It's ringing the alarm loud and clear that it's time and past time to awaken from the mental haze in which we've been wandering around. Are you waking up? I bet you are. And if you've been journaling, even irregularly, you can go and look at the evidence of that. Just take a look at your journals from a year or two ago, or heck, from a few months ago. The change is happening, but if you content yourself to remain only in the conscious mind state, then there's so much you simply won't see, because you can't, not from there. This is that old thing about which Einstein said we can't solve the problem by remaining on the same level with it. We've got to rise above it, to step back from it. Mankind is desperately in need of a much broader view on things. If we don't get some detachment going on, then we'll likely drown in our misconceptions, which we've mistaken for established scientific facts. It's time to start questioning that, way past time. Nassim Haramein is a good one who's leading the charge. Now, this is fine since so many of us are doing just that, questioning it all. Do not self-criticize, though, whatever you do. That's to replace one harm with another one that's not any better in any way. There are some hidden beliefs that need to be examined if you tend to blame or criticize yourself all the time. You've got weeds in your garden of belief on which your reality is based. Our beliefs are what create our reality, our experience of that. So, in the midst of all of this messy stuff, let's be aware that it's just on the surface of things, this mess. This is not our hidden reality. One sure sign we've gotten off track is if we're not laughing anymore, if we've forgotten how key it is to enjoy the self. When we're in enjoyment, then we're plugged into the deeper reality, chances are. Watch the self and see where you fall on this measure of enjoyment. A really positive thing you can do for yourself is to get back into enjoyment. You've got to follow your joy and your bliss. You've got to know you are worthy of it too, and that it's perfectly natural to be in a state of perpetual quiet enjoyment. You've got to accept that you deserve it, or you just won't let yourself have it. Until you do, you won't go far in raising your conscious awareness into higher frequencies. If that's what you want, then I suggest it's time to look at this, at your state of enjoyment of life. It's diagnostic. Once we pluck up our belief in many or most of the lies we've been fed on and programmed with, things get suddenly lighter, more enjoyable all around. We've got to stop watching the dark, dismal videos proclaiming their messages of one kind of doom or another. It's a choice, one we make every day. Is that what we want to do with our time? Bring ourselves or keep ourselves down like that? I thought not. Then I suggest we do something about it. It's not like there aren't options out there. Maybe too many of them, I know. Still, there are options. It's time to dust off our free will and give it some exercise. Time to learn to say no more often. What do you say? Are you up to it? Do you trust yourself enough to rely on it this way? I hope you do. But if not, no big deal. You can choose to change that. You're the one in charge of you. Step up to the plate. It is your responsibility to enjoy yourself. Try that one on. How does it fit? It is your solemn duty to have fun, to lighten up on both life and yourself. You think you can handle it? I bet you can, but it may be more challenging than you yet know. We've been heavily programmed against any such thing. We're supposed to be dour and depressed, fearful and angry all the time. That's how they want us. Well, too bad for them. Come on and say this with me. Too bad for them. Start loving yourself more. You can do this, but it takes focused determination. You wouldn't think it would, but it's because of the programming we haven't cleared away yet. That's what makes it hard to choose good, clean fun, like simple enjoyment of the beauties of life. We've been taught to not even perceive them. So how can we enjoy them until we pull those weeds out of our belief garden? Not so easy. Everything around you is giving you an indicator of the present state of your awareness. It's all talking to you every moment. I know it sounds strange, stick to heart. Well, so what, right? You can make room to take a look at life from this different perspective. It's a choice that you're empowered to make. The one who empowers you to make it is you. Give this some conscious observing, self-observation. It's time for you and for all of us to be present right where we are. No more waiting for some mythical future, some rescue of one kind or another. Ditch that stuff. That has you out in the mythical future. If it happens, great. Meanwhile, don't rely on it. You're here right now, so stay out of the future, unless heart takes you there. It's time to be fully present right now and right here. Now here equals nowhere. It's the void. It's the emptiness. Dive in. Emptiness in fullness. Fullness in emptiness. It can all seem this way if you want to. I think you owe it to yourself to at least check it out. Give it a month. Give it your very best shot. At the end of the month, if you don't feel and see sufficient change, you can always go back and pick up things the way they were. I'd have to ask you, though, why you're so attached to that. Has it given you any real happiness? And how long did it last? Okay, so this gets down to the message about our need to be loving the self. Are you up to it? Do you even know how? Until you ditch a good deal of the programming, it will seem really awkward, even stupid. You can also recognize that as just more of the programming kicking in. Time to get good at distinguishing the head from the heart. The one that gives you trouble, my friends, is always the mind. There's simply no trouble in heart. This heart thing doesn't easily fit into words either. If it did, that would mean that it's 3D and linear, since that's what words are. Instead, it's higher dimensional. What I mean by heart, I'll lay out in different ways just to give you the sense of it. It can be seen from many different angles and perspectives. Heart is much like a portal that can be reached from a point somewhere that's congruent with the center of your chest. It's not in 3D, so it's nothing we can touch or even define. And if I gave you a definition, I would again be talking about something in 3D, in the linear world. Heart isn't that. Not the way I mean it. If it can be defined, then it's limiting. Words are limiting. So I'll give you a link to that journal on this topic. I can tell you, though, what people's biggest challenge with heart is. It's the need to let go of the mind to enter heart. People are so addicted, not just to mind, but to the left brain part of it. They feel like they'd lose themselves if they let that go, even for 1 second, much less a healthy minute or so. That shows them they're identified with mind. They actually think they are mind. But they're not. None of us are. Detachment is called for. Can you see it? Can you see the crying need for it? Until we detach from mind and pretty much everything else, our vision of life will be terribly limited. It will be restricted to the 3D version of things, which we know has no ultimate reality. The only constant in 3D happens to be change. Well, that should tell us something. Time to let go of our comfort zone. Why wait to have it ripped from our tight grasp, huh? There's no need for that. It's setting the self up for some unnecessary suffering. Yet each one must see this for him or herself. No one can do your seeing for you. This process demands that your changes be made inside. Quit trying to change the outside world for now. That's to go about change the wrong way, or at least very ineffectively. All true change originates within. You've got to go there and do that to make it happen. And you won't be able to boss things around that way. Perhaps you've noticed? I bet you have. Just be grateful, my friends, that we don't have this ultimate power to change right now. If we had that power right this minute, can you imagine the crazy things many of us would be creating? As soon as we'd get good and angry at someone or something, it would probably die. If we got angry enough, our every thought would manifest in less than a heartbeat. Overall, we're not ready for that. Got some more weeding to do. So we're in transition. That's what is on the horizon. Change in the blink of an eye. Total power to change, to bring change. Let's start recognizing our own divinity, our divine nature, and surrendering to that. When we do this, we've got some notion of our ultimate power, which is good. Remember, it's by our desire and imagination that the powers that were have been using us to create their reality. What they desire, chaotic, with them always on the top. These things can be seen. More than that, they can be experienced. If you're having a hard time with any of it, look to your garden of belief. Do some work there. Choose 1 or 2 new beliefs as beautiful flowers to plant there. And then step back and watch the fireworks as the old beliefs come rushing up to kill the new plants. Those are your choice points, where you're in the best shape possible to pull up those weeds. This is simply ideal. Something hit me this week and I almost had to laugh. Now, I may not be right about this, but I highly suspect that I am. If you've read or watched my journal on sun gazing, you'll know my thoughts on that, how I don't go in for any particular methods or practices. And I'll give you a link here. So anyway, it wasn't from any particular desired outcome that I went into sun gazing. Heck, I didn't even know the things that are suggested as promised outcomes of the practice. Anyway, when I was listening to a video this week about sun gazing, it mentioned how eventually you will lose your appetite for food. And suddenly it clicked. I haven't been able to figure out why I've lost so much of my appetite for eating. It's been a bit mysterious, so I blamed it as likely being the result of our changing DNA, knowing those changes are brought in on the rays of the sun. Now, that's what's so funny, that the proponents of sun gazing say that if you take it far enough, you might not even need to eat anymore. Well, I don't suggest anyone take it to such an extreme level. Be very cautious instead. Still, I'm making room inside for the possibility that this is what's happened to my appetite. My sun gazing simply ate it up. What do you think? Do you know anyone who has had this sort of a result from their sun gazing? Anyway, it doesn't matter in the long run. None of this does. They're just our stories. It's just an interesting detail. I also suggest we be very cautious about getting too serious about such details in 3D. They can prove to be distractions from the more powerful ways we can focus our awareness. And what do they ultimately produce? Anything having to do with the body is ultimately as unreal as the body is, as here for a short while and then gone. It's real while it's here. It just won't be here for very long. This isn't the heart of our reality. That's within. It's clear to me that just staying with and in heart is to be at the heart of our reality. It's to be poised to have the clearest vision and fastest transition into higher consciousness. That's my choice any day. It's all about balance and staying with now. We can all accomplish this. It just takes a good bit of determination. If your heart is on fire for truth and light, this will be a no-brainer for you. No worries. You're already most of the way, if not all the way there. I mean, we are all the way there, but anyway, this isn't about that. And if we take it to the next level, and even deeper one, then of course you are already there. You are already perfect, whole, and complete. All you need to do is remove space-time from the equation. That steps you up a dimension or two into higher consciousness. This is our ultimate oneness, our ultimate single identity. This is the flip side of every 3D coin. We have 3D on one side, but on the other one is this awesome underlying reality where nothing ever happens. It's quite okay if you don't quite get this yet. I don't. That would be just because you're still in mind a bit too much, or you have some more weeding to do in your own garden of belief. This all comes clear very easily when approached that way, or some equally simple way. It requires absolutely no effort at all. It's more like remembering. If you're exerting effort, then you're in mind again. Just drop down into heart and let that go. Let heart speak. Finally, you can do it. The fact is that you've already done it. Now sure, you may not yet have conscious access to the aspect of your inner being where you know this is true, but please don't stress about such things. Just know you contain the whole universe, the whole cosmos, right inside. Things are actually far, far better than they currently look on the surface. Once enough of us do enough of awakening, we'll be transferring those beautiful insides right out there into the outside world. We'll be that powerful, just because we are. Let your mind be pretzeled. You do some of your best working things out with a fully pretzeled mind, one that's been stunned by the koan. Give mind a little paradox, a little puzzle to work on, such as this one. These eyes through which I hoped to see God are the eyes through which God sees me. Something like that. Tickle the mind with that. This frees you up to dive deeply within heart while mind is otherwise occupied. You won't even have the self-talk, which is really mind talk, to deal with. Mind will be frozen in pretzel or Mobius array. Once we all come to see that it's a programmed mind that's our biggest hurdle to cross, we'll make short work of that. And all of our individual successes will help carry our brethren right along with us. And that's just how it works. We build a momentum. The tipping point. Are you ready to let go of or loosen your stranglehold on the mind yet? And if not now, then when? What are you waiting for? Please don't look for rescue from outside. You are the rescuer for which you've been waiting. Just as I am. Only you. Only us. No one else is coming. Let that all go. You don't need it, my friend. Christ lives in you. So she can come to you that way. Namaste. Yes, I know it's he, but how about some balance with that? Good day.